Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I should correct the record. I was an assistant U.S. attorney, so as not to think I was promoted more than I was. But thank you.
Humility is also one of the traits I admire in you.
Thank you, Chairman. The explosion of everyday AI use practically overnight has caught the attention of many in the IP space, and for good reason. As many of you know, my constituents in Hollywood and the entertainment industry and more broadly in California are particularly impacted by the rise of AI. And we eagerly look to see how it will affect the creative industries. A recent analysis of ChatGPT's training sources by the Washington Post found that 11% of the model's input data comes from arts and entertainment, including movies and television, art and design, and entertainment events.
Y'all see, like I said earlier, basically they get this data off of everything we do. Facebook, Instagram, the games, YouTube, TikTok. Yo, they get all this data. Basically, these robots are going to come out. These robots already know the type of shit that we're into when we interact with them because of the stuff that we do here on the web. I'm sorry to say it. For those of y'all that get mad at me, listen, it's only but a little click, right? Get on your little laptop, computer, cell phone, whatever, and search everything that I'm saying up. You don't have to go by what I'm saying. Go actually look to prove up yourselves. I'm just here to bring the news. I'm here to bring awareness. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not here to judge nobody. But I would love to hear what y'all think.
Mr. Navarro, I want to echo a remark that you submitted in your testimony today. Technology has long empowered human expression, and AI will be no different. It's true that new technologies have the potential to complement or augment art and have certainly done so in the past. AI can be used to enrich the work of those in the creative industries. But behind all of that work are human artists, people. The copyright system is the foundation for the entire economic marketplace that allows American artists and creatives to earn a living and American companies to create jobs for the sake of producing art. Copyright law must continue to incentivize and protect this activity in the United States and beyond. Blanket AI exemptions do not exist in current law, nor should they for copyright infringement. I wanted to ask two questions. One, Mr. Navarro, and that is, under what circumstances would you?
Facts, Cutthroat. Because listen, after this meeting right here, after this video, I'm gonna start off a little portion of the Sophia Stewart interview that a YouTuber did with her, so that people could understand, you know, why she made the Matrix and the Terminator. She is the original creator. For a lot of people that don't know, like, I'm gonna put that in between these two meetings, so that, you know, I can kind of like prove a point and hopefully people understand what it is that I'm trying to do. Like I said, once again, I'm just here to bring awareness. Facts. So Terminator and the Matrix, for those of y'all that think that it's two different sagas, in reality, it's one saga. But when that interview comes, y'all will see, and I would love to hear what y'all gotta say, because it's crazy. Yo, what I've learned throughout all these interviews that I watched with Sophia Stewart is crazy. She's exposed a lot throughout all her interviews.
You be interested, or do you think other artists would be interested in licensing their work for AI? Or do you think there's a broad enough concern about moving away from human-generated music that you think artists shouldn't sell their works to be used for AI is one question. And then another question for the broader panel, and that is disinformation is a grave concern with AI. It may very well affect people in the political world, but it'll also affect people in the arts. How do you see disinformation about artists or about their works being a danger, and how do you think that can be addressed?
I think certainly the area of disinformation is underscored by the rise in the last few years of the deep fake phenomenon, which I know you, I was at your talk at SAG-AFTRA. I'm on the national board of SAG-AFTRA. And this is a tremendous issue in terms of right of publicity, but even just putting faces on bodies that are doing things those bodies wouldn't do. I don't think that there's a single answer to whether it should or should not be allowed. But what might be right for somebody to have their face put on a body that suddenly is a war hero might be okay. But to have a face put on a body that's doing something pornographic would not be okay. And I don't mean to be indelicate in that, but these are some of the concerns. With regard to music, it's probably a little different. I think that every individual has their own line of demarcation as to what should or should not be done with their work. And I think certainly when you're dealing with the physical countenance of somebody, that the standards and the strictures are going to be greater.
Thank you. And one thing we held.
Well, me personally, I wouldn't want my work stolen. So listen, while I'm here, I want to take a minute. I want to thank the Mill Ticket because he's one of the first. I'm gonna keep saying it. One of the first persons here on YouTube that helped the shorty out helped her to learn how to copyright her poems and everything else. And now, even though it took me a minute because I had to learn how to put the licenses on each video, but now I can play all my poems on my lives and not get no copyright, no strike, no nothing. Because they was striking me for my own material. That's the messed up part about it. See, social media be the first ones to break the law. They'll be the first ones to go against the little constitution and everything else. You have to sit here and fight and prove to them, no, this is mine. Fucking assholes. They what you call some real bitch ass real shit.
An open hearing in the intelligence community years ago on deep fakes, and among the most chilling observations was that once you see a deep fake, even if you're later persuaded that what you saw was a fake, you never completely lose the lingering negative impression it left with you. So the damage is done when you see it. But would others like to comment on the danger of disinformation to artists?
There's a very important initiative called the C2PA. It's the Content Authenticity Initiative, and it's led by Adobe and others. And they've determined a way to track any changes made to images, whether by AI or otherwise, so that especially when it comes to photojournalistic images, people can be confident in the provenance of the images that they're looking at. That's C2PA.
C2PA.
I was just going to say that certainly in my own experience, and I'm sure for the other people here, you put in a lot of hours from a very young age to train to do what you do and become really good at it. And, you know, to dismiss that in any way, I think that's the problem that a lot of us are having is, you know, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who wrote, 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours, you start to know what you're doing. If the machines can do it that quickly, what is the incentive for us to keep going? What really is it? I mean, for years and years.
You see what I'm saying? Basically, they're trying to have the machines do the jobs faster than us. But it's nothing better than just taking your time and observing and, making sure that everything is right. Like real shit. Like y'all want these machines that are just programmed. They have no conscience, no mind, no nothing. Like they don't care. But you know what's crazy? That's why they really want them. A lot of people get money greedy. A lot of people get selfish. Listen, I could really go into this, but I gotta watch what I say and how I say it when I'm on here, so I don't get striked on this channel, because I've already gotten enough strikes on my other channel. I've been on YouTube jail so much because of the way I say shit, but shit, I'm not wrong.
And years, for as long as you can remember, go back to the court composers. The arts people have been traded on, they'll do it because they love doing it. They love doing it. And it's true, we do love doing it. But at some point, the love doesn't feed your family. And that's the real harm here, is there has to be a way for us to coexist. That's all we're looking for, really.
Mr. Chairman, may I add a comment? Because I'd like to highlight agreement on this issue.
Quickly.
I am in absolute agreement with the artists on the panel here that this is an important issue and people should not be allowed to imitate another person through deepfakes or through imitation. And I think the right of publicity is something that's very worth considering as you consider legislation on this.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having this hearing today. This is a really interesting topic, right? I mean, we look at this. I have not ever in my practice done IP work. AI is the next wave or the wave of the future, if you will, of what we're going to be dealing with in this country, really on all spectrums. Mr. Birch, I got a kick out of reading your bio, where your PhD students joke that whenever they ask you anything,
That's true. Like, for those of y'all that think, oh, we're gonna stop the technology, the technology's been here. And now they're just trying to find a way. Y'all seen Terminator, y'all seen iRobot, y'all seen all that. They're just trying to find a way to get these robots to, come into the world, to interact with us, for us to, listen, y'all know the rest. Like, to each his own. Y'all got your own mind. Y'all got your own conclusions. Y'all know what 2 and 2 adds up to. Like,
your first response is, did you ask Chat GBT for that? I think that really kind of sums up why we're here, right? Mr. Damley, I want to ask you something. Can you, and I've been bouncing around in committee hearings all day, so I may have missed this, but can you identify inadequacies of our existing laws to address copyright protection of AI?
I think that there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered about whether AI output is protectable by copyright and the circumstances in which it is. This is such a new issue. The Copyright Office has put out its guidance, but that guidance really addressed kind of one end of the spectrum of the question, which is where there is virtually no or minimal human input into the creative process. Does the output qualify for copyright protection? And the office says no. But that's just one end of the spectrum. There's a whole area from there to somebody sitting with a paintbrush and painting on a canvas, where you're using technology to assist you in the creative process, whether that's autofocus on a camera, whether that's Photoshop, or indeed whether that's generative AI. And I think generative AI, properly understood, is going to be a tool for human creativity. And if you talk to artists that really have incorporated generative AI into their creative process, they don't see it as a substitute for.
he's explaining the differences between the artificial intelligence.
Their own creativity. They see it as a way to enhance their own creativity. And so we're going to have a lot of hard questions in that space, where there is really a iterative process between the human author and the generative AI system to determine whether the output of that process is copyrightable.
Do you think we need a completely new set of rules? Does existing contract law maybe cover this? Or is it possible for this to fit in with existing law?
I think existing law is well suited to deal with all of the questions we've been talking about today. Congress had the wisdom in the 1976 Act and various amendments since then to build a technology neutral, flexible copyright.
This is why I urge a lot of people to go learn their Constitution, their bills, their laws, and their rights.
Regime. And I think it's proven time and time again that no matter the new technology that comes along, the laws are able to adapt to them. And there are instances where perhaps they're not, and Congress can step in and act in those circumstances. But in general, and I think in this space, I think our existing copyright laws are well suited to handle the questions that as they arise.
When I was reading the guidance for this and reading the CRS report that was issued kind of surrounding this, what struck me was it reminded me of a test in law on whether somebody was an independent contractor or an employee of a company, right? So the test that they look at is the degree of control in which somebody exercises over that individual on whether they're an employee. You can call them an independent contractor all you want to, but if you're the one doing the schedule, you're the one putting in all these requirements and what they do, they're not actually an independent contractor. They're actually an employee at that point. And so to me, there were some similarities there that when we're talking about the degree in which, there's litigation on, hey, create a song that sounds like this and there's no input. But where do we go? Should we be looking at it in that terms or in those terms? Is the degree in
That's kind of crazy though, what he just said about the independent contractor. But I get it. But isn't a lot of independent contractors their own bosses? Which what I mean is that they set up their own times. They determine if they could do it this day or not. They got their own hours. They say if they're gonna work or not. Y'all get my whole point, right? So there's a big difference between an employee that works a 9 to 5 or a 6 to 11 or a 12 to 6. I don't know if y'all get my drift, but big difference to somebody that puts their own hours, shuts down when they want to, like says no, says okay, I'll do it. Like, but it's their choice. An employee, if they don't come on time, if they miss days and they don't got no proof of why they miss these days unless they're medical, guess what happens? They're fired. An independent contractor decide to quit, move on to the next task. Listen, that's my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong. But there are a lot of independent contractors that, don't abide by nobody's rules because it's their business. They could decline you, they could accept you. It's up to them. So I don't know, it's a little.
which we provide input to AI, to the generated product as a test.
Thank you, Congressman. I think that's a really useful analogy. And in fact, there is a part of copyright law called the work for hire doctrine that really asks that exact question. The extent to which you exercise as the employer control over the creative output of your employee, or to the extent that they are able to do things on their own. And that determines whether it's a work made for hire or not. And I think that we are, people that are copyright lawyers are looking at that body of law already as a way to draw analogies in this space, considering the AI as an employee, or is it an independent contractor? Is it running on its own, or does the human author actually have some control over what the AI is outputting? So I think it's a very, very useful analogy. You sort of anticipated where copyright lawyers already are on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Lofgren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a very useful hearing, and I appreciate the testimony of each of these witnesses. I believe that AI is going to upend a lot of careers. And in fact, the House of Representatives has had 3 bipartisan Congress-wide briefings on AI in the last 2 weeks. It's going
Briefings that a lot of people don't even know about unless they look for it, they research it. Because guess what? They're not going to knock on our door and say, hey, excuse me, listen, we want to bring awareness to you about this. This is what we're doing here. These are the types of meetings we're having. No, we have to get our lazy ass behinds up and do our research. All it takes is a couple clicks of the keyboard and do y'all search. Like, real shit. But a lot of people is real lazy. I understand the people that don't have social media. Real shit. I do. Because there's a lot of people that only have YouTube, but they don't have Facebook, they don't have Instagram, they don't have TikTok, they don't have none of them other platforms. There's a lot of people that just have Facebook and they don't have YouTube, they don't have Insta. See, it's just crazy how the world goes. And then there's a lot of people that really don't have social media at all. So they don't really know about the things. But the people that do got all these type of social medias and they be on there for all the bullshit, and y'all telling me y'all didn't hear about this? Man, I can't believe that. Y'all hear everything else that has nothing to do with what's going on around us politically, what benefit us, in our communities or much more. Y'all hear everything else but that. Interesting.
going to upend the practice of law. It's going to upend the practice of medicine. It'll probably upend engineering. The difference for creators, at least you have some protection in the law.
You see how she said it will upend construction, engineering, a lot of stuff. Artists, they're protected by the law. Yeah, their copyright work. They're protected. I keep saying that. But how about us, the regular civilians? They got regular 9 to 5s. So once again, everyone, I would love to hear your opinions, your perspectives. What do y'all think? Will the robots actually benefit mankind?
Which is copyright, which is absent other professions. And the question is, how will that work to protect creators? I was glad that Mr. Altman in his testimony indicated that creators should
Out of all of them, she has the best question.
be compensated and do have rights in that recognition. But the technology is complicated, and how that is going to work, we don't know yet. I'll disclose that a number of months ago, I put together some creators with the AI people to see if we couldn't have discussions. And I was thinking honestly about the Music Modernization Act, which I think was very successful in reaching negotiations so that creators could be compensated. And I'll express some disappointment that progress that I expected to have been made by now has not yet been made. So I'm hoping that those discussions will re-energize. But here's a question, I guess, for Mr. Birch, Professor Birch, and maybe Mr. Sedlick, since you represent different ends of the knowledge base here. We've got basically two questions. You got the input question, which is basically lines of code that have been assembled. And then you've got the output question, which is how much of this is infringing. Is it, in your judgment, even possible to reach an agreement like the Music Modernization Act did so that creators can be fairly compensated?
I think that there are a number of practical issues that make this very difficult to imagine, not least of which is the fact that we're not performing anything when we're outputting something from a system. It's not simply a collage where we're combining elements of existing work. It's genuinely been distilled into a form that's completely different than the original. That, I think, is going to be the crux of what makes this difficult. I think that there might be a market for licensing images and songs and things like that that companies end up voluntarily entering into. But I don't think that the practical implementation of such a thing will be as easy as it was for the MMA, which I understand was already very complex.
I don't think that most photographers are concerned or whining about the fact that AI is going to affect, it's going to compete with them in terms of it's easier to create images with AI than it is to create a photograph. It is.
It's just that everybody up there should have a problem. Artists and celebrities and, magicians and stuff like that. Y'all safe, y'all protected by a copyright law. You know who's not protected? The people that have a 9 to 5. The people that have a 3 to 10, a 4 to 11. I mean, listen, different hours. Like people that work from Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, Monday to Sunday. Like whichever way it goes, those are the people that are going to get affected, not the artists, not the celebrities, not the musicians, not none of them. That's the crazy part. But see, this is a committee meeting. This right here is a committee meeting, and I'm gonna read to y'all in a minute what it was about, when it happened, and where it happened.
What they're concerned with is the use of their works in that system, grinding it up and spitting it out as generated AI based on their works and their fact that they're not compensated and it's done without their authorization. Images are data, but they're not merely unprotected facts. An image, my image, is my depiction of a fact, applying my creative expression to depict it. And so the copying of that under 106, irrespective of anything else, is an infringement. It's copied into a system. That's infringement right there. In terms of,
you see how they protected by the copyright 106, and we're protected by copyright 107. And I think I'm not sure. We're protected by different copyrights, and I think it goes all the way up to from 101 to I'm not sure what number, but he's protected by 106. One of the other guys is protected by copyright 102. So listen, it's different levels to this copyright shit. So for those of y'all that don't know about this, I urge y'all to go do y'all research, especially if y'all want to do blogging, if y'all want to do, YouTube, Facebook, any type of stuff like this. Because I've been doing my research and I understand where they're coming from. And it's kind of hard to break this down. And I'm trying my best. And I know there's other people that already understand it. It could probably break this down even better than I can.
In terms of the output, that output may or may not resemble my work. It may or may not infringe on my work. But the input, copying the work under 106 would be an infringement unless fact specifically it's fair use.
I thank you for that. As I was listening, I was thinking back to my prior service as a staffer to my predecessor in office, Congressman Don Edwards, and his partnership with Bob Kastemeyer in the 1976 Act, and how the work that they produced has endured to this day to protect the creative forces. But obviously, we need to meld technology to help that protection. Adobe, which is located in my district, actually did the watermarking of their tagging. We actually used that in the January 6th committee to prevent our material from being altered. So I think there's some real possibilities here. I think we've got a long road ahead.
Artificial intelligence has been benefiting humankind. But here's the question: what y'all trying to bring in are AIs, right? Okay, artificial intelligence, we get it. But y'all want to bring in robots, robotic dogs, robocops, robot humans. Y'all want to bring in cyborgs and all that extra shit. Y'all want to go beyond what this world, what this realm, as y'all call it, is ready for.
But I'm hoping that the discussions that are ongoing can ramp up a little bit, because I think that's probably the most productive way to reach a successful conclusion. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. We now go to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that all of you have been sitting there for quite some time. So before I ask my questions, I'd like to pause for a quick musical interlude.
Bro, what?
Got my heart on my sleeve with a knife.
Yo, you gotta be kidding me. This nigga just put some music on. You about to strike me. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't ready for that.
Rest of that song. It's as you heard, it is a rendition of something by Drake and The Weeknd. And many of you
see, then Drake and The Weeknd at that. Yo,
I would suspect maybe all of you believe that that is likely that their true voices. And in fact, a musical song written and produced by both the Drake and The Weeknd, but in fact,
you see this old man right here trying to get real young on us. Like, yo, he really just put some hip hop on. Like, I was not expecting that. Y'all might get a whole strike because of him. Ain't that some shit? We all here talking about copyrights. This nigga gonna sit here and pop up some Drake in The Weeknd on a whole committee meeting. Is you serious though? Like, where we do this at?
It was computer generated using only snippets of those artists' original voices. Even the most ardent fans of Drake and The Weeknd, and I'll admit, they're not my first choice. I'm more of a Toby Mac and Stephen Curtis Chapman
all right, so why didn't you just pick them? Whoever they are.
Guy. But even the most ardent fans didn't realize that that was not their voices. And in fact, in just a few short days, that song garnered over 500,000 streams on Spotify before it was ultimately taken down. I'll also admit that I'm profoundly blown away by the artistic value sitting at this table, but then also concerned about what's going to happen to the creativity if we don't get a hold of this artificial intelligence issue.
Yo, let me say this real quick, yo. I was saying this earlier, right? And I was asking everybody that question. Imagine having a robot. Y'all know it's already, they already got them little sex robots and everything that look real and stuff like that. They got the clones, all that shit. Imagine a robot walking around using your voice, or somebody using a robot to, use your voice to do whatever it is that they want to do. And people think that it's you calling people, fucking with people, bothering people, like, and everybody really thinks it's you doing all this to troll on social media. Yo, there's already avatars here. The crazy part is they're real people, but it's still a real person, right? Even if they're using a robot. Yo, this is the crazy. There's so many theories that we could use to this. But what's crazy is, the consequences behind this shit. Is y'all ready for it? Is y'all ready?
And protect the creativity of human development. Just like what Drake and The Weeknd need protection for, all of human creativity needs protection from, I think, what we're seeing from the artificial intelligence community here. I'm curious if any of you knew that story about that song. Were you all aware that that had happened? And did you guys hear that song before you knew that it was not actually Drake and The Weeknd? Yeah, it's amazing to me that it sounds.
I understand that right now, though. Right now, you could have at least warned somebody that was, some type of, because I'm reacting to y'all video. I have no rights reserved to this video. I'm reacting to it.
Sounds exactly like them. Mr. Navarro, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Mr. Irwin mentioned 3 primary issues to focus on: consent.
Yo, you know what would have been crazy if he would have started dancing with the song. That shit would have been real funny.
Credit and compensation. I appreciated the fact that you mentioned those. Mr. Navarro, as a generational singer and songwriter, why is it not enough just to give credit to an artist if AI uses your voice or prior works as a basis to create something new? Why is credit not enough?
I'm very familiar with this particular case. Royalties are generated. I serve on the Unclaimed Royalties Oversight Committee of the Mechanical Licensing Collective under the Music Modernization Act in the U.S. Copyright Office. Where do those royalties go? Who do they go to? They didn't authorize the use of their voices. AI could be used to put abhorrent words into their mouths. They didn't get their permission. They have contractual relationships with Universal Music, and this operates in violation of it. Many, many entities are harmed by using this without going through whatever the proper channels are. And no means no. If they had said no, no means no.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier, even if you have credit and compensation without the consent, it's really nothing more than compulsory licensing. Is that true?
Yes.
Do you consider, Mr. Navarro, derivative AI works from your original works that sound like you to be works in competition with you?
I think they're works superseding me.
Mr. Donnelly, I want to ask you a couple questions because I wrote down some quotes that you had throughout the testimony today, and I couldn't follow some of the consistency in them. I want to read you back some of your quotes. You said at one point, existing law is well suited for everything we are dealing with today. But then at another point, you said people should not be allowed to imitate other works. And then you answered the question, you said earlier, we need to look at other areas of the law other than copyright in order for examples like the Drake and The Weeknd example that I just gave you for protection and examples like that. So are we perfectly suited under existing law, or do we need additional laws to protect artists like the one sitting at the table?
Thank you, Congressman. And just to clarify, I'm not sure all of those quotes were mine. I think only a couple were.
All of those quotes were yours.
So the question of whether copyright law needs to be changed, I think the answer to that is no. I think our copyright law is, I'm a copyright lawyer, so I sort of focus my testimony on copyright law. I think copyright law is well suited, flexible enough to deal with the copyright questions that are being raised. Now, I acknowledge that there are concerns like with the Drake and Weeknd track that are legitimate and need to be considered. I think copyright law is really a blunt instrument, too blunt an instrument to deal with that. And so it may be worth looking at other areas of law outside of copyright Professor Callison Birch mentioned right of publicity, there's trademark law, there are other areas of law that I'm not expert in that may be better suited to deal with these situations than copyright law.
Okay, and you may be right. Professor Birch may have said people should not be allowed to imitate other works. He may be the one I need to attribute that quote to. So I stand corrected. Not my first time in Congress, won't be my last time. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. We appreciate it. It's a complicated issue. We want to get this right. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
I thank you, Chairman Issa, Ranking Member Johnson, for holding this important and very interesting hearing. It's also very pleasant to be in the company of this talent and to have us really getting along very, very well because of the subject matter. So thank you, thank you. It's been a real pleasure for me. I know this won't be the last of our hearings. It's really among the first. There's so much to learn. There's so much for me to learn. But we know as lawmakers, we can't wait after widespread societal use to come back and say, what did we do right? What should we have done in advance? We've learned that from other technologies. I want to lay a couple of my biases on the table. I taught for 10 years at a different Philadelphia university. I taught writing, all different levels of writing to students at LaSalle University.
Oh shit, she from Philly, huh?
And to very much what most of you have said, Mr. Navarro in particular, I always taught my students, yeah, know your craft, understand the mechanics, break the rules when it makes sense, but make sure you place your humanity in whatever you write. That is the genius of what you create, placing humanity in it. My other bias is I'm a copyright holder myself. My son, Harry Canan, and I wrote and published a memoir of his struggles with addiction, our family's struggles with his disease of addiction, but much more importantly, the power and the hope in recovery. We also wrote a children's version of that book, and it was made into an audiobook with the extraordinary generosity of Mr. Paul Williams, writing and producing and performing the background music for our children's book. My son, Pat Canan, is a television writer and movie screenwriter. And so when some of you talk about how long some of this stuff takes to come, I keep saying to Pat, where's the movie? It's years, but maybe we will see his name. He's done real well. I bring the...
Y'all peep how they keep mentioning movies in this, John? But maybe I'm tripping. I don't know. They do mention a lot of movies, and I keep saying that in between these movies, there's a lot of messages, and a lot of people, I don't know, either they sleep or they woke. But if they sleep, y'all need to stay the fuck in bed. Morpheus ain't skip you. You just ain't paid attention. You wasn't woke. That third eye was really, really sleep. You ain't smell the coffee in the morning.
Those biases to the fore. When I consider what we've seen of generative AI, two questions seem glaringly obvious. So if you'll help me with these. The first is the creation of these models being done in a way that respects the rights and interests of authors, musicians, artists, content creators? To your very point, consent, credit, compensation. If I frame it a different way, is anybody doing this right? Maybe I'll start here with Mr. Sedgwick. Anybody doing it right?